I would like to congratulate our volunteer spotlight, Patricia Teagan. We do have a couple of September birthdays, Nitya on the 5th, Darren on the 7th, Kristen on the 18th, and Melissa on the 21st. We also have two very special anniversaries celebrating 14 years with CASA. We have Miss Beverly and Christine Tovar. And Charlie, no, I don't believe so, no.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're enjoying the food. Well, as a community engagement specialist, we have a few events coming up. We have Games and Gossip. It's our first Game and Gossip night for the volunteers. So make sure you come. It will be September the 12th. We'll play games while we get to know more about each other. And it'll be fun. We may gossip, you know. And then we'll also have a peer-to-peer meeting, which will be September the 21st. And that will be held, both of these events will be held at the crossing. We also have, we'll be at the National Night Out at the Riverside Park on September the 23rd. And we have a pork chop fundraiser. Our tickets are for sale. They're $10 each. Please join us. Oh yeah, we have some top sellers in the room. And then we also have a new volunteer training coming up in October. So if you know someone who would like to volunteer, they can come to one of our information sessions. I'll also probably be hosting a coffee get together, probably at the end of this month. But those are pretty much, we have annual wine pairing in November, on November the 10th. So save the date. The tickets will be for sale. Are they for sale already? They are for sale at this time. Talk to Tim and Kelsey for more information. But other than that, hey, spotlight. I was like, I think you're next.
I'm next. Okay.
Yeah. ED update.
ED update. Hey, thank you all for being here. And Charlene, thank you for putting lunch together for us. It looks delicious. I can't wait to chow.
I'm exhausted.
Thank you. Who else here today? Let's see. I know we have our speaker here, and Marco will introduce him. How about CASA volunteers? Can we see a hand? Woohoo! Thank you. And hello online. I always forget where I am. So thank you all for joining us. And let us know if you have any questions. Charlene's going to monitor the chat. So great. And let's see, we've got volunteers. And how about board members? Any board members here today? Thank you. Thank you all for being here. And let's see, staff. Okay, great. And how about Belong? Is Belong in the room? All right. Now, Belong is our colleague and our work. And so I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm so glad you're here. But volunteers, if you have questions, here they are. Is that okay? Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. Well, I'll put you in charge of that. Thanks. And do we have any visitors checking out CASA for the first time? No? Okay, well, great. Thank you all for being here today. We've got a great speaker. I just wanted to touch on a couple things. The pork chop dinner, Marco will tell you more. We've got tickets here. I do want to point out that Dean has been our #1 seller right now. Thank you, Dean. Go, go, go. If anybody else wants to join in on the fun, we have tickets that you can sell too. They're $10 a piece. And we need to have those tickets sold and that number to us by September 25th, I think it is. So Ansenhofer Chevrolet, who has put together this fun celebratory fundraiser for us, can buy all the appropriate pork chops and all the good sides. I hear this dinner is really, really good. And also our volunteer training, that's coming up, and that's going to be starting on October 17th. It's going to run the Tuesday, Thursday, and the following Tuesday and Thursday. So if you would like to drop in, volunteer, staff, board member, on any of these, please do so. That'd be great. We'd like your input. And if you know of anybody who might be interested, drag them along as a friend. Say, oh, I'm going to stop by at this volunteer training. I'm a volunteer. I just want to see how things are going. Maybe you'd be interested in this too. So think about that because we could really stand a few more volunteers. Right now, we've got about 20 kids without a volunteer. We're serving 146 children and 20 hadn't a volunteer. So that gives us a volunteer child ratio of 86%. That's great because last month we were at 79%. So thank you all for reaching out, taking those cases and recommending people who can take a case. That's really helping. We want to make sure all these children have the benefit of a CASA volunteer just like you. And we have 98 families in care and 16 of those families hadn't to volunteer. We had 4 children leave care and 2 of those had a volunteer. And I'd like to thank Linda Owens for devoting 33 months of service on her case. And I'd like to thank Alicia Partida who did 32 months service of her case. That's really great work and a round of applause. Welcome. So we did have 11 children come into care. That's 7 families. So we got most of them cased up, but if you're interested, we can get that going for you. If you're interested, reach out to Charlene or Kelsey. Diana is on vacation. She gets to see some grandkids in Kansas and she'll be back on the 11th. And we had 52 volunteers working in August. And we would like to thank Greta Grossenbacher. She is a new volunteer who took her first case on August 11th. So that's great. We're glad to have her on board. I know she teaches in Gonzales, I think it is. And so hopefully you can join us online. I don't know who's on there, but hello if you are, and thank you. And volunteers in August provided 310 hours of service and drove 1,757 miles. So that is a year to date of 2,848 hours volunteers have donated, and they drove over 15,000 miles. So if we were to assign a dollar value to each volunteer hour, which I finally got, the number is $31.90 a volunteer hour. We come up to an annual donation of services of over $100,000. And this is starting in January, so thank you all for doing that. Thank you. Well, I think I've been here long enough. I'd like to introduce Marco Forrest, our immediate past board president, and he's got some information to share. Hey, Marco.
Before you start.
Oh, lucky man. What if I pick my name? Did I get that?
Yeah.
My drawing for the people online?
Yes.
Okay.
So we got Monica. Ticket number
Making a heat.
428005.
Okay. Real quick.
Nicole Green. Ticket number 428033. Kathy. Okay. Katie.
Kate.
Ticket number 428004.
All right.
So I'm gonna do one more draw for the barbecue Chuck Place at Ansenhofer, donated by Ms. Sports. So please. Megan, ticket number 428032.
Okay, now the long really doesn't get to leave the house.
I'm going to give you a more update. We're still looking to hire a development director.
That's right, we're down to 2.
We're down to 2, and also we are so close to be sold out on the pork chop. So please help us sell all of them. It's for a great cost. It is a great quantity and quality. I had it about 2 years ago in a different fundraiser, so you're not gonna be disappointed. And the next thing I would like to congratulate the volunteer spotlight, Patricia Tiken. Thank you for your service. And I would like to introduce Mr. Paul Chabot, guest speaker, Chabot, sorry, from the Government Center. Thank you for being here, sir. Yes, you're right. Yes, sir. You want a mic? You can. Or you wanna-
I think my voice projects pretty good. I do this for a living, so I'm Paul Chabot. I'm one of the community educators at Gulf Bend. My main program is the mental health first aid program. That is a Texas-funded program, and we support community school systems and colleges. I wasn't always a mental health trainer. I served the Navy for 28 years. I spent 17 years in Ingleside, Texas. Who remembers that little tiny base down there? I retired out of Corpus Christi in 2009 when they shut the base down. Unfortunately, all my stuff moved to San Diego, California. So that's where I went to follow my job, my trade. I taught for Lockheed Martin and General Dynamics for another 13 years after I retired. My kids are deeply rooted here in Texas. My wife and I were visiting our children and our grandchildren. We found a little house in Victoria. And we said, we're done. We packed up our stuff and came back to Texas so we could be with our kids. A little bit about the mental health first aid program, because you have to listen to my pitch about that first, since it is my program. It is a evidence-based program. It's been adopted and highly supported by the state of Texas. It's one of their best practices program for teaching mental health awareness to the schools. Part of the program is awareness, suicide prevention, being able to notice signs and symptoms of a youth or adult that is suffering from some type of mental health challenge, being able to talk to that person and then connecting them to the right resources. That class itself, depending upon which version you take, is 6.5 or 7.5 hours long. So what I'm doing today isn't anywhere near close. I'm just gonna bring out some major points to talk to you about the mental health program. I'm gonna start with the video first, okay? This video, I get it, it's from 2012, but things haven't changed, okay? It's from the Mayo Clinic and it's very impactful. Volume.
Well.
Playing that protectable notes.
One moment.
I think it's the microphone's back.
It's because it's recording. That's a good idea, though.
No, that's the.
Sorry, everyone. We've never shared a video this way. It's always just a presentation. Just get out of the present.
But you're sharing, you gotta take your boot off.
Yeah. So switch back over to
Oh,
no, I just-
Click on this one, click on this right here. Click on that. And click on the screen. And
You're sharing, right? Go, you got the media.
This is the Zoom.
Yeah, but you're sharing, you got to take it on video. You're sharing it, huh? Yeah, but you got to put that on mute. You're sharing. The stuff I wouldn't mind, you can try it.
okay, so go back to the beginning.
Is that your computer? Okay, click on that. And then do your microphone. That's what I'm trying to do there. Now we're gonna start it over. Sorry for the inconvenience.
That's fine, actually.
Playing on here.
Turn it up. No. Hook it up. There's a US, whatchamacallit on there. Hook it up.
Okay, all right. We'll carry on.
Sorry.
This is. Three. Go to the present. Go to the movie. 1, 2, 3. All right.
Well,
All right, so I'm gonna carry on, folks. Sorry about technical difficulties. This movie is actually, it's really good. We use it just about every presentation that we do for mental health. And basically what happens is the bunch of kids are just stating comments about, I started cutting myself 18 months ago. I started having suicidal tendencies. All the signs and symptoms that we would typically see in a youth that was having some type of mental health challenge. The problem is nobody did the other end to those questions and help that youth through that challenge itself. So maybe we'll get it figured out. I don't know. I'm not gonna really worry about it. I wonder when I do this, okay? If they're expecting me to stand in front of that little tiny camera.
I will tell you guys, we'll share out the video
Okay.
on the news that are going out on Friday. So you guys can
All right, so let's talk about Texas by the numbers. Who knows where Texas ranks overall for mental health? And this is up February of this year, and this is from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. No, that from overall ranking from like 15 different categories. Incidents. In services, it's the whole gap. 46 out of 51. Okay. We've gotten better since last year, since the last time the numbers were up. So in February of 2021, during COVID, when COVID had a big impact, 43.4% of adults in Texas reported symptoms of anxiety and depression. That's one of the big stats from there. 1 in 5 people will suffer from some type of mental health disorder, whether it be substance use, mental health challenges, whatever it may be. This is amazing. Out of almost 900,000 people in Texas that suffer from mental health challenges, 45% didn't get the training because of, or didn't get any services because of the cost. I'm from Gulf Bend. We serve Victoria and 6 surrounding counties. Access to mental health treatment in Texas is very difficult because of the rural communities that we live in. When we have a counselor that has to drive, or somebody that has to drive all the way from Port Lavaca, Seadrift, Point Comfort, Hallettsville to come to Gulf Bend for training, it's expensive just for the travel money. Taking that time away from work, whatever it may be. So people just opt out of training or opt out of the treatment because there's a whole bunch of different things they'd rather do with that time and their money. On the average, 1 person in the United States dies every 11 minutes from suicide. In Texas, last year, almost 4,000 lives were lost. So if you want to put that perspective, Victoria, go to the Victoria West High School campus, fill up 1 whole side of the bleachers because it seats about 10,000 people. So half of that's about 5,000 people. That's how many people in Texas will die by suicide this year. The number's absolutely staggering. Why don't people get treatment? A lot of it deals with stigma. I don't want anybody to know that I'm crazy. I don't want anybody to know that I'm having some type of mental health challenge. Those are some of the big ones. We already talked about the logistics issues. Travel's tough. Fortunately, in Gulf Bend, we have completed cars. Those cars are checked out every single day. And we either bring treatment to the people or we go get the people and bring them back to the center and get them treated. It's another reason people don't get treatment. They don't know what resources are available to them. You would not believe how many times they go out to the community, especially the outlying areas, and say, who knows about Gulf Bend? Who knows where they're at? None of the hands come up because they just don't know what resources are available at the Gulf Bend Center. Getting a family on board is also very important. A lot of youths in our community don't get treatment because mom and dad, they think their kid just wants attention and they don't need treatment. So getting that family on board is also one of our great big goals that we try and do. Delays cause other serious problems. Once they start, people start withdrawing because they have some type of mental health challenges. It just starts to escalate. Recovery. Just like any other illness, the earlier you get treated for mental health challenges, the better your chance of recovery is. That's why we as adults, we go to the doctors, we get blood work done, we get various treatments, blood pressure medicine, cholesterol medicine, whatever it may be, because if we check it early, typically recovery is better and we maintain that. The evidence shows it that people that get treatment earlier have or experience easier recovery times, and sometimes full recovery from a mental health condition is indeed possible. There's some of the more serious symptoms that can develop: the reduced likelihood of problems with work, family, reduce the likelihood of substance use. It can help reduce medical costs and can reduce the overall burden of the family. How to start the conversation about mental health is something very difficult, and what we call it in mental health first aid is the approach statement. This middle statement right here that starts from I, that's always what we try and do. I'm worried, I've noticed, I'm concerned, because that statement shows that you're taking notice of the individual and you actually care about what's happening in their life. There's a whole bunch of other things that you can do. Are you okay? I honestly wish me as a parent had gone through mental health first aid training when my kids were young and growing up. Because I guarantee you, my approach to my kids wasn't like what's on that PowerPoint slide right there, okay? I brought that 28-year Navy veteran home when my daughter was a teenager, and we would get into it just about every single day. I got regrets. Like, I have to admit, I have some regrets about certain things I did in my life. For example, my daughter has Crohn's disease. I come in the house, she's acting up with her mom. I step in, she wasn't gonna listen to me. I run down the hallway, chasing her into her bedroom. She slams the door in my face. I proceed to the garage, get my hammer and screwdriver, take the door off the hinges, bring it to the garage, tell her that's my room, I just let you sleep there. And then I got properly reprimanded by my wife. I had to put the door back on. And if I just would have said, how are you doing? Are you okay? It would have changed that whole relationship that we had. I have a good relationship with my daughter. I could have had a better one back then. That's what I'm saying. So use those approach statements. Take a walk with somebody. Go for a drive. Whatever it takes to get that person kind of isolated and kind of in a comfortable position. That's how you start that language and that dialect with them. Listening. We as Americans, as adults, it's one of our most challenging things to do is to keep our mouths shut and let that other person talk. It's called good listening skills. Be fully present. Put your phone away. Put your computer away. If you're sitting at a desk, tear it off. Pay attention to how that person reacts with that conversation. Keep that conversation going. Now, 65% is body language. So pay attention to it. A lot of people, I see it here, like this, okay? That is considered standoff body language when you're talking to an individual. Just keep that in mind. Smile, say yes, nod your head, but don't do any oh my God faces. As soon as you give an oh my God face, what did you just do to that person? Do I know? Shut them down and you judge them, okay? And that's one thing that you have to pay attention to. Are you the right person to carry that conversation out with that individual, whoever it may be? Because there's certain things that are our culture, how our upbringing was, that we just can't get past. And if you judge a person, you're not the right person to speak to that individual. When you're going down the road, you see that car that pulls out in front of you. It's not the most road-worthy car. And you're saying, you know, get that thing out of my way. You're judging that individual. The problem with judging that individual is that you don't know the road that person's been down. Maybe they're driving that car because all their money is going to somebody for medical bills. Okay? Keep that in mind. Don't judge. No, my God, faces. They talk about leaning in a lot of conversations. You have to have some cultural considerations because some people don't want you in their space.
Put your own expression.
Yeah, that big open eye, oh my God, you know, it's like, keep good eye contact. That's an iffy one also. We as Americans, we typically like eye contact. Is eye contact good in all cultures? Nope. Okay. If you go to like the Taiwan at Formosa, you don't look an elder in the eye because Formosa is a Taiwanese company. That's not a good thing. If you go to the Arab community, you don't look at women in the eyes. That's not a good thing either. So that's a cultural consideration you need to maintain. Don't stare them down. There has to be a balance about everything that you do in that conversation. You have to ask those open-ended questions. When you're talking to somebody, and all of a sudden that silence occurs, you have to stimulate that conversation. One of the best ways to do that is with an open-ended question. Tell me more so I can better understand what you're going through. Tell me more so I can help you. I need more information. There's nothing wrong with asking a person those questions. How do you want to move forward with this? Ask them, get permission. They may not know, so you're probably going to connect them with someone. It's up to you. When you're helping somebody, the playbook is in your hands, whatever you feel comfortable about. Reflect on what you hear. That's really simple also. You have that awkward silence in the conversation, and all of a sudden you just go back and you say, so what you're telling me is that correct? Yes. All right, I need to know more. That's what keeps that conversation going. Be patient, because it's not about you, it's about that person that's going through that tough time. I have an acronym I use in the training. It's called Q-tip. Anybody ever heard that acronym before? Quit taking it personally. It's not about you, okay? Help that individual. We already talked about the judgment. I'm going to go over that. Stress, depression, anxiety, they all build on one another. Most of us know what it is. I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time on this particular slide, but these are some of the common stresses for our youth. School, having just to go to school, and then mom and dad put more pressure on by doing well in school. Sports, people want to perform well. Work, people need to make money. They're under stress to make sure that income keeps on coming in. Other extracurricular activities. A lot of times, when kids get to that age where they start entering adulthood, they're responsible for contributing to the household too. That puts stress on them. Getting a driver's license. Who was stressed out when they got their driver's license? Anybody? It took me like 3 times. Okay, I was a very good driver when I was young. So, and back then, you know, here I am in high school. I got a girlfriend, and she's like, "You failed your license for the 3rd time." So, there's stress. When people head out to college, when people move out, you know, usually mom and dad are ecstatic when the kids get out of the house. Don't worry, they're not gone forever. They're coming back. I guarantee you that, right? But it's stressful for the youths. Social life, social activities, the internet, which I'll get to in a minute. Those are all stressors. The more of these stressors that we can reduce, the less negative thoughts, negative emotions, negative actions. Things that we can do, prepare that child. Hey, you're headed out to college, you're going to go join the workforce, make them aware, remind them constantly of what's coming up. The more risks that you remove, the better off that youth, that individual is going to be. Social media is another one. I kind of like how this slide came together. These slides are all from U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, or NEMA, one or the other. More than 9 of 10 teens, which means what? All of them, okay, use social media. There's a lot of stresses involved with social media. More than 80% use it daily. We all have phones sitting in front of us right now, for the most part, okay? We use it. indirect communications, lowering the risk of emotions, cyberbullying, stalking, there's all kinds of things that go with social media and the use of a cell phone. Who thinks that social media is more positive than negative? Raise your hand. And that's what we see all the time whenever I ask that question at training, okay? There's a lot of negative things that come out of it. There's a lot of negative things for a parent because we don't know what our kids are doing all the time. Even though we all have that philosophy, I pay for that phone, that's my phone, and I'll look at it whenever we have an opportunity to. We don't. There's a lot of stuff going on. Self-harm or non-suicidal self-injury. NSSI is another thing that we look at. Why do people do it? To control their mood, to express themselves, control, punishment, trauma reenactment. I like that first one, to control mood. Who is a baseball team? Anybody? During the playoffs, they remember which team that picture was from, has a bad knee, goes in the locker room, punches the locker to control his mood or express himself. What are you doing? He broke his hand out for the rest of the playoffs, okay? That's how people control or punish themselves. It's just their way to express themselves. I've done a lot of research trying to get more information on non-suicidal self-injury.
It's almost like me that this problem.
Very complicated. And I've read, trying to be more informed about it, but it's always all over the map too, you know. Everyone has their own opinion. It's like everyone has their own, you know what, so it's different. So risks, which teens are at risk? One or more mental health conditions, including substance use disorder. That's one of the top ones. Impulsive behaviors, undesirable life events, a family history of mental illness or substance use disorders, family history of suicide, family violence, including physical, sexual, verbal, past suicide attempts, guns in the home, and imprisonment or incarceration of one of their parents. Those are some of the risk factors. None of the lists that are on these PowerPoints all inclusive. It's so possible to do that. But we have to overcome those risk factors with positive factors. And one of the most important positive factors any child can have, I think, is what your program is all about, a role model adult that's there for them, constant and consistent for them, okay? We call it, on this previous slide, the weighing scales. As long as the protective factors can outweigh the risk factors, typically the individual is good, okay? It's gonna be okay. There's that balance in your life. What are the warning signs of suicide? Once again, not all inclusive. Personality changes. As soon as someone starts acting differently from a consistent personality they've had in the past is a trigger. Teens, a breakup, problems with relationships, withdrawing from people, withdrawing from activities they used to like to do all the time. Schoolwork goes down. They can't concentrate. They start acting like the rebel. They start doing risky behaviors because they don't care. They're planning on killing themselves anyway. So let's have some fun on the way out the door. If someone gets pregnant, runaways, using drugs and alcohol, that's always on the top of the list also. Eating or sleeping too little, too much. A drastic change in appearance. All of a sudden you have a young person that always looked nice and clean, and all of a sudden they start coming into wherever looking like the dog just dragged them in from outside, okay? Giving away things they like that are very precious to them because they want whatever they're giving away to end up in the hands of the right people, whatever it may be. Talking about suicide, if someone's talking about suicide, you have to really pay attention. Talk about that in a minute. Writing notes, social media, the list goes on. The last straw, I can't handle this anymore. And then you get to the very most distinct one, threatening to kill themselves. We already talked about some of the protective factors, having a supportive family, friends, supportive activities, good hobbies, whatever it may be to keep that person happy. Anybody know what that's called? Self-care, okay? Overcoming stressors. If they have current untreated mental illnesses, severe mental illnesses, is also a big trigger. This is probably one of the most important slides I have up here. Take it seriously. If someone's joking about it, you take it seriously. If someone says, I'm just gonna go kill myself, take it seriously. Even though that you think they're not serious, take it serious. Be prepared to ask those hard questions. If you see someone's having a really rough time, those are the two questions you're gonna ask them. Or one of the two. Are you thinking about killing yourself? Are you thinking about suicide? Just think how hard those questions would be to ask. I've had to ask someone that question before. And it was a miserable thing to do, but I'm glad I did it because that person needed treatment, okay? And we're gonna ask it directly. We're not gonna ask if they're thinking about hurting or harming themselves. We're gonna ask if they're thinking about killing themselves. And then we're gonna drill down a little bit further. Have you made any plans, any preparations? If they have, that person is in jeopardy. This is a 911 call, and you tell the operator that the person appears to be suicidal, however you want to put it to the operator, and ask for a mental health professional. If they say yes to thinking about suicide and no to the preparations, are they any less danger? No. In all honesty, how long does it take? Just like that, you know, grab a gun, walk out your back door, go in your bedroom, wherever it may be. It can happen very quickly. I was doing a presentation at Formosa, and I had a gentleman walk up to me at the end of the training session that we had. And he goes, Paul, and you could tell he was very upset. He goes, I did everything right except for one thing. I didn't ask the question. And unfortunately, that individual ended up dying by suicide that he didn't ask that question. He goes, and I honestly think if I would have asked him that hard question, he would be here with us today. So don't be afraid to ask a question. I was at training, and one of the young people said, I could never ask that question to one of my friends. And I said, then why are you here for? And you're really not your friend. You have to ask the question. Make sure that you ask that child. Don't worry about the stigma involved. I'd rather deal with stigma than a death. It's a lot easier to deal with. It's better to ask for that help and not need it than need it and not get it. So make sure you ask that question and make sure you reach out for treatment. Feel free to take a picture of that slide. That's also what's at the front door that I left. There's a lot of contact information there. National Suicide Prevention Center. The Gulf Bend QR code crisis. Who's heard 988 here? Some of you haven't heard 988 yet? 988 is the new suicide prevention line. 911 was just getting overwhelmed, and for mental health challenges, they wanted people to dial 988. So it puts you right online with a counselor right away. If you're from Victoria, call the Gulf Bend Crisis Line. I encourage you to put that in your phone. And the reason for that is, at the time of crisis, not the time to be struggling to figure out who to call. 988 is great. You go through the bureaucracy of a 988, just like a 911 call with a bazillion questions. You dial that Gulf Bend number, and it puts you in direct contact with people at Gulf Bend, and the reaction time is much quicker. Questions for me?
Why you put gun up first?
Because that's what the slide had. There's all kinds of things.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of things you can do.
Yeah, but there's a lot of circumstances too. Like, and the thing is, I got them in my house, okay? So that's the first thing that comes to my mind. Yeah. And you gotta remember, I am not a licensed counselor. We don't do therapy sessions. I connect you with the proper resources. Okay. Yeah. First, so the 988 number is on Texas level, okay? It's a nationwide number, and it's just like your 911 number where you connect with your local mental health authority. So if you dial 988, eventually the rabbit trail, you got to right back up and help them and we're going to dispatch our mobile crisis outreach to wherever we go. And that's why. Take that rabbit trail out of there, it's called dump that right away. Just short.
So the phone number you have up there, that's 24 hours.
Yes. So the Gulf Bend number, we are a very small mental health facility. We have people available 24 hours a day. The crisis line goes through a switchboard and constant. They ask all the correct questions. They make sure that they dispatch the correct team to whoever is in the crisis. But we just don't. We get rid of this part of the equation. That's why we always recommend the home home.
And are you treating kids yet?
Okay, so this question gets asked a lot. Yes, we do have an adolescent facility. I don't know if you've been there recently, but they completely redid the bottom of Gulf Bend at first floor because some of the adults were really scared of children. Okay, so they segregated them so you have the adult side and the adolescent side. Gulf Bend is operating at about 75% personnel capacity, but we're serving at 125%. So our caseworkers are just loaded down. When people come to Gulf Bend, they do the assessment like you're supposed to do. And unfortunately, you have to wrap the staff. Sometimes it takes like up to 11 hours. And I get it, that's sad. But when you're working at over capacity, it's
And I can fill in 24 hours,
Yes,
7 days a week.
24 hours, 7 days a week.
And the second question to follow up that, do you guys have a follow-up treatment after you guys do that intake?
Yes,
People come in?
yes, they schedule just like a regular doctor's visit to come in. Typically, we like going up to them because the environment's better. So that's why our counselors, caseworkers, wherever it may be, they have that big fleet of cars up there, and I got noticed today, all the cars are always checked out, every single day, because we're bringing the treatment.
So what's the ratio? That's the last question I have. What's the ratio?
I don't have those numbers off the top of my head for office. Yeah, I don't have them. Probably get them, we should have them. Because once again, since we work on grants, we have to keep all kinds of statistics. Yes, ma'am.
I know you guys work with children and adolescents. Are you incorporated in the school districts as far as having workers go visit the kids at school?
You want the answer to that one? Okay, so the question was, are we incorporated in the school? So if it's a youth, I want to change that, is having some type of mental health challenges, we can go into schools. And the answer to that is if they let us. To school. So sometimes we have to get written permission for our counselors to go to the school and check that individual out. They go sit in the parking lot, get off the school property. They'll do what they need to do and they return them to school. But some schools,
But they
really
don't
stand
have like
up.
a spot in the school where they can work with the kids.
When I went shadowing with Gulf Bend when I first got there, they had a quiet room that we could go into and they could sit at school. The only problem with that is, oh, little Jimmy's seeing a counselor again. So we're trying to move that environment to get rid of that stigma. So that's one of the good things we're trying to do. Or they sneak them out of class instead of going to the next class. They just go to their room and nobody really knows where they are, and then they're in class, and this is the teacher that knows for the most part.
Well, this has been really timely because September is suicide prevention and awareness month. Thank you for sharing. And we all work with children, families who are involved in foster care. So what do you think? Are there any levels of stress that we should be aware of? Because we know these families are stressed.
Yeah, because they have more respect.
Okay. I was looking at those risk factors, and they look very much like an ACE score.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, well, strength is pretty high. So as we do our advocacy, what should we be especially
Try to overcome the respect themselves.
okay? And how would that?
With positive factors.
Okay. The positive factor might be like had a roll.
Being there. Oh, that's Brianna.
Yeah.
Oh, Bianca, I'm sorry. Reading this thing out. Pretty good.
Yeah.
So, her being that consistent. That's what I'm recommending. That any consistency in the life reduces the risk factor. Okay. So that's from the training I got. And to be honest, I'll be really honest, or become a mental health first aid person, trainer, you have to go through this whole certification process. So we do get extensive background. And I don't want to toot my horn, but Texas has the best mental health first aid program in the country. Both trainers that won awards this year, one was from Uvalde. She stepped in, she was a top trainer in the entire country. She's been doing it for a while, she's LPC. And this guy here was the top new trainer. So we did really good. So I trained about 1,000 people this past year. And I think that is awareness. People have to realize that it's out there. When we were young, we didn't talk about mental health. We didn't talk about suicide. We didn't talk about any of that stuff. That's why that mental health first aid course came to the United States in 2012. And then in 2019, they looked at that course and said, this curriculum needs to be completely overhauled to meet what's happening today. Cultural environments, everything was revisited, relooked at, and taken into consideration of previous courses. So the mental health first aid course is basically brand new. It came out late 2020 and actually it's a very, very good course.
You shared with us that one slide and found so important. First question.
Yes.
Can you kind of model for us how we would ask that question of somebody who is probably 12 years old and in the foster care system and exhibiting some stuff? How would you say?
I would say, I don't think I use suicide. Okay. And once again, people ask me, how would you do this? Oh, I would do it. Probably different than you and everybody else in this room. Yeah. I would probably just ask them about killing because it's more direct instead of using the big suicide word. But they may not understand what that word is as you. You think about killing yourself. It's not easy either. When I first had to do it, I had to do it twice. I was a mental health first aid instructor. Guess what? There was someone coming up to me after training. And one individual goes, how do you know when you need mental health treatment? He goes, all this stuff that you put out today is all fine and dandy. He goes, but my wife passed away, which is one of the risk factors in that community. He goes, I'm having a really tough time. And I don't know what to do. And I asked him, he goes, well, he didn't answer directly either. So you think about killing yourself, you think about suicide. He goes, I'm having a tough time. I said, well, if you're telling a perfect stranger that, you have. And another young man came up and goes, hey, nobody talked to me. And that's something important. People need people to vent to. My wife and I are empty nesters, our kids are growing up. We moved to Victoria. Yes, you get to listen to each other's stuff every day, okay? And thank God my son is here in Victoria because when I forget about my wife, he gets a phone call. You wouldn't believe what your mother's doing. So it just happened. But I think that's something else people need to wait for. You know, I mean, those hard questions. And actually, that young man, he said, there's no way in hell I would ever ask anybody these questions. I was cleaning it up because I didn't want to say it, but my response was, well, why the hell do you do? Ask a question. I'd rather ask a question and get a no out of it than not ask the question and regret it. But asking that question directly what they say. Just like a drink. You're thinking about killing yourself or are you thinking about suicide? I would dance around it or anything like that. I don't care how young the person is, 12 years old, I probably couldn't kill him because most people understand what kill is. Because it's not getting things up there well before.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else have questions? Oh, Rebecca, I see one.
So what's the next step after someone says, I need help? Do you call 988 or do you call them?
It depends upon the situation, first of all. If I have Rebecca by the arm and I'm keeping her what we call safe for now, I am just going to bring them to help them. If it's working hours. So after working hours, we use that crisis line and have one of their outreach people come out, do the screening, do the assessment, wherever they're at. That's how Paul would do it, okay? Taking a person to the hospital can be a real drag because what do hospitals focus on? Emergencies, okay? Unfortunately, they don't think mental health is an emergency. And I've heard people hanging out in the ER for hours on end waiting to be seen for mental health. And guess what they end up doing? They call Gulf Bend. Yeah, this person needs a screening. So just cut through the chase and call Gulf Bend. Let them get there. 10 o'clock people out there. That's an outreach team. And get they'll screen, find out what level of treatment they have. Some good news. Do we have an inpatient mental health facility here in Victoria? Anybody know?
Said it was good.
Yeah, it is good news. We don't have one, but we're gonna get one. I think it's a 63-bed unit that we got approval from the state of Texas to fund it. They're looking for a piece of land and more resource sponsors so they can carry through, but the goal is to have that new inpatient process within the next 2 years. This way, we're not parking people all the way up to Houston, San Antonio, Corpus Christi to find them a bed and some type of mental health facility. So that's the good news from it.
What's the most common cold?
Really? Guys like me with a violent ending. None. That is the most common form.
That's usually what happens.
Yep. So the age group is, I think, 57 to 63. That's the age group for the highest risk of suicide. Thank you. Yeah, if anybody else has had experience with someone saying that they're gonna kill themselves? Here, if anybody in this room has experienced someone that's thinking about killing themselves. Yeah. Okay, so you said something very, Rebecca? Gene, so many things up here. You don't have a tag on, take all of them. Okay, so Gene said commit. In the mental health community, we're trying to get away from that term, committed suicide. Committed is a very wishy-washy word. And the reason for that is there's a lot of good things that go along with commit. You can be committed to your family, committed to your spouse, your job, your faith, and the list goes on and on. But on the other side of the coin, commit, larceny, felony, all kinds of nasty things that go along with that. So they're trying to remove that word from the vocabulary for dying by suicide. And if you notice, even the news now, they get much better saying that we died by suicide instead of saying committed suicide. You don't commit cancer, you don't commit heart attacks, you don't commit leukemia, you die from it. So that's why we say die by suicide or kill yourself.
I overlook one.
I'm sorry. That's the thing. I like violent videos. So I'm not going to go out and kill somebody. I would like to say there's something underlying there that causes that. That's the trick. Yeah.
You can play violent video games. You have all these positives over here.
Yeah. So I'm sorry I'm dancing around that because that's really an opinion type question. And I haven't done the research to see what the doctors, the professors, and everybody else with lived experiences say about, how that impacted their life. So I'm dancing around that. Okay, so.
Do we have any more questions?
So, for our kiddos that are in foster care, does Gulfbed offer any resources to them?
Shoot me an email. How easy it is. I go with clinical services and I find out exactly what they'll offer to your folks. That's
How long is your service?
28 years.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Well, if we have any more questions, we'll wrap up and there's no question. But this is a good time if you get your thoughts and voice. That Springs has a great article and resources on secondary suicide prevention and awareness. There's a lot of great information about today. Take a look at it and not getting it. Let us know in the office and we'll get you a look out for that. That comes out once a month on Wednesday. And there's a great article there. I really enjoyed reading about this. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
for sharing this.
Thank